Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My wife refuses to let me turn the basement into a man cave. After that, am I the jerk for telling a student I don't care? And after that, wife stole from her job and me. I tracked her down and got her arrested. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to stop her husband from having a man cave. Fine by me, I'll just make a she shed of my own. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My wife refuses to let me turn the basement into a man cave. I, 26 male, just got married to my wife, who's 25, back in September. My wife and I have been saving and investing throughout high school and college, so we were able to close on a really nice house. The house is 2,800 square feet and comes with 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, a finished basement, a back patio with a hot tub, and a kitchenette. We bought this house as we're hoping to raise a family in this house. So we have 2 living areas, the basement living area and the main floor living area. I figured my wife would want to take priority over the main floor, so I said that she could design the main floor living room the way she would like, as well as the master bedroom, but I wanted to design the basement living area the way that I want. My wife asked why she can't help with the basement, so I told her that I wanted to turn the space into a man cave, so whenever I invite friends over, we would have a place to hang out. My wife was angry when I mentioned what the space would be used for, and she said that she did not want the space to be turned into a man cave, and that we both had to agree on how the basement living area would be designed and what it would be used for. I was a little irritated after hearing this, and so I told my wife that I'm letting her design the living area and master bedroom 100% the way that she wants, and that I just wanted the basement living area to be completely the way I want. I also added that since we currently have no kids and are not expecting one at the moment, that she could use any of the bedrooms for something extra. After I said that, my wife started guilt-tripping me, saying that she was offended that I was excluding her, and how this is not just my house, but how it's our house. I haven't started anything yet in terms of designing the basement living area, but I really want a space in the house that's kind of my own and is designed the way that I want. I've tried explaining this to my wife, but she keeps saying that I'm being selfish, so I wanted to know if I really am being the jerk here. Edit. Many people have suggested that I take one of the empty bedrooms and use that as a man cave rather than the whole basement living area. I think this is actually a good idea, and I will bring this to my wife and see what she thinks. I will also ask what she was planning on using that basement living area for. Edit 2. So far, it looks like almost everyone agrees that I am the jerk. I can see why I was wrong here, and I was definitely excluding my wife. I plan on apologizing to my wife as well as asking her what she would like to do. Edit 3. Okay, so this post blew up overnight, so I will give everyone a quick update. I apologized to my wife for excluding her and getting ahead of myself. I also talked to my wife and asked what she wanted to do with the house. She said that she's fine with me taking the basement bedrooms to be used as a man cave, but she will use the upstairs bedrooms for her own space. The basement living area will be used as a home theater, and my wife also said that she would like for me to be involved in designing the rest of the house. Living room, master bedroom, kitchen, laundry room, etc. I really do see now why my original plan was just not a good idea. You're the jerk. It's not a question of who designs which area, it's the fact that you're saying she can design 2 areas, which will be for both of you, and you will take one entire section of this house as your own. This is something that should have been discussed before you bought a home. And you know she'd have to worry about whether he liked what she did with the living room and their bedroom, while he checked out of the process of designing their shared space. And the solution of taking one of the extra bedrooms, since they don't have kids yet or immediate plans, isn't good either. I guarantee you that basement has a lot more space for him to hang out with his friends and exclude her and her friends than the bedroom would have had for her and her friends to hang out and exclude him and his friends. Plus, as soon as they started having kids, she would be expected to give up the room for the kid. After all, at that point she's a mom. What does she need hobbies for? You're the jerk, OP, and while the whole thing sucks, this is what stuck out to me. Especially since she'd have to give it up if they had kids. He thinks he deserves a whole space to himself, and she gets to design the common areas? If nothing else, they should split the basement in half man cave, half she shed. Okay, truly the audacity of just assuming one gets a whole floor to themselves, not just for design, but to use. Because it's totally reasonable to want to be involved in house design, but taking the whole basement as a man cave is always crappy. Literally assuming any of a jointly purchased house is for your own exclusive design, ideas, or usage is pretty crappy. How hard is it to say, I was thinking this could be a games/media room for us to entertain in. I have some ideas about how I would like to set that up. The use of ManCave denotes he expects this will be his space. I feel immensely for OP's wife. You're the jerk. How generous of you to let her decorate shared living spaces for you and future kids to enjoy while you get an entire basement for you and your buddies to party in. You cannot seriously believe that is fair. The fair thing would be to make the basement an entertainment room that you both design. You don't need a man cave. Consider your wife. You're the jerk. You are going to use the main living area and the master bedroom even if you let her design them. But you think it's fair that you get to have the whole basement as your man cave? You're the jerk. You are segregating her from a large chunk of the house because you want to impress your friends? Yikes. It sounds like you really don't value her as a human, let alone a wife. You didn't let her design the rest of the house. You just didn't put any of the work in because you didn't want to, right? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. If Reddit Boy wanted to decorate our basement himself, he'd need a new head. Am I the jerk for telling a student, I don't care? I teach 7th grade at a Catholic school. I don't teach all their classes, but I do teach math, religion, English, and social studies to my class. I have this student I'll call Chrissy. She is a handful. She's a smart girl and usually does well on tests, but she is extremely dramatic. I've been having a lot of issues with her when it comes to late assignments. I do accept late homework, but 10% is taken off each day until they fail the assignment. Obviously, there are certain circumstances that students can turn in late assignments without penalty. Chrissy has been turning in assignments late all year and going on some sob story about why she couldn't get it done in time. I have been giving her full credit, but every time my patience is getting thinner. It's her grandma is sick, so she was visiting her in the hospital. Her dog ran away and she was out all day looking. Her uncle is sick in the hospital. Her mom got stuck at work, so she had to spend all day babysitting her siblings. Her dad got mad at her, which sparked an anxiety attack, and she couldn't do the homework. You get the picture. These are all excuses she's used. There's even more. I feel bad, as I think she's getting a lot more leeway than the other students. Today, we had a pop quiz on a reading assignment from last week. This is a normal thing we do on Mondays to test who read last week. After the quiz, Chrissy came up to my desk as the rest of the kids head to another class. So the grandma of her best friend growing up passed away. She was having a rough time, so Chrissy basically spent the entire week with her after school and just couldn't get the reading done. She admitted to probably failing the pop quiz and wanted to retake it later in the week. I looked at Chrissy, sighed, and just said, Chrissy, I don't care. You do this all the time. It's not fair to the other students. You have to find a way to get your work done. The excuses are not going to work anymore. She started to tear up and plead with me. I told her if she is really having these serious issues so frequently, we can have her parents come in for a meeting to figure out what we can do. She insisted that wasn't necessary and she can't get her parents involved. I told her that's her only option. Either she get the work done on time or we sit down with her parents. She left the room while yelling that people like me are the reason her generation has so many mental health problems because we don't understand their struggle. Am I the jerk for how I handled this? I really think I did the best I could. Edit. Wow, I did not anticipate this to blow up. I'll try to answer as many comments as I can when I'm free. Edit 2. I don't want to comment this 100 times, so I'll add it here. I'm seeing the community seems to be split on the reasons why Chrissy doesn't want her parents called. Personally, I am of the opinion that this is because she's lying, not because anything bad is happening at home. Not the jerk. I was ready to throw you out for being a jerk, but what you said to her needed to be said. She doesn't want to get her parents involved because she knows she's wrong. OP. That's where my head is. If there's a serious issue here, then I'm not sure why she doesn't want her parents involved. You should probably reach out to the parents anyway. You never know what's going on at home. I don't believe all the stories she told you, but she might be overwhelmed with life and her parents don't know. Or she might just be a lazy, entitled brat who doesn't want to do her homework. Info. Did you ask her why she didn't want her parents involved? Her parents could be part of the problem, considering how adamantly she didn't want them involved. Gee, I don't know. Maybe because she'll get grounded? I don't know. She mentioned having anxiety because of her dad getting mad. As a middle school kid, I was very similar to Chrissy, but my teachers were rightfully less patient than OP. I was not getting my work done because my parents expected perfection, and I was so nervous of the end product not being good enough that I often couldn't even get myself to start. I don't know if this is an option, but maybe suggest that Chrissy go to a school counselor. Having someone qualified to discuss mental health with me, even just once or twice, would have made a world of difference in my life. If it was just that excuse several times over, I'd agree, but my friend's grandma passed and I can't do any work all week is stretching it. She needs to learn that she still has responsibilities. Teacher here as well. I would have called home when she gave the first excuse for a well-being check. This way, you can confirm whether or not something happened, keep the parents in the loop, and guide them in the requirements of the school, and helping Chrissy manage her time in an effective manner. This will also help when it comes to report cards because you don't want parents asking why she's failed, only for them to ask why they weren't notified when she wasn't completing assignments. This is the way. Either the kid is in a crisis or the child is full of excuses and nonsense. Calling the parents for a talk and a check-in is the first step to sorting out which one it is and how to move forward. Not the jerk, by the way. Or having an honest conversation with the student to say, I cannot keep accepting undocumented excuses. I care and I want you to be successful. How can we work toward that? Yeah, this is the step that's missing here. OP allowed the student to get away with this for months, setting the expectation that any excuse would fly. Then OP suddenly changed course and decided that they wouldn't accept this kind of excuse from the student anymore. The problem is that OP doesn't seem to have had that conversation with the kid before the policy change. I think in OP's head, they were getting more and more upset, but the kid had no idea anything was wrong. OP needed to be more proactive and talk to the student about what was happening instead of letting it fester like this. I completely agree, but going with you're the jerk on this one on the off chance that the kid is going through something else at home that she doesn't feel comfortable talking about at school. OP is also opening herself up to repercussions if the parents turn out to be enablers. Gotta cover yourself in this situation as well. Be proactive and don't let it get to this point. Well, what do you think? Is the teacher a jerk or not? Please let us know. She's not a jerk, but she did mess up by letting this kid get away with this crap so many times. Wife stole from her job and me. I tracked her down and got her arrested. My first marriage was to a woman with bipolar syndrome. When she was medicated, she was awesome, but she finally convinced herself she didn't have a problem and stopped taking her medication. I dealt with a lot over the years with her fake pregnancies, affairs, and lots of lies. She could never keep a job for more than a month or two. She would get a job, tell me how much she loved it for the first month or so, and then something would happen and they would fire her, and she would blame everybody but herself. While in between jobs, I would find some of my items going missing, movies, collectibles, etc. I thought it was her, but I had no real proof. Finally, she opened her own business doing house cleaning. She was a neat freak who was very obsessive and good at cleaning. Despite her condition, she was very charming and likable and soon had a large client base. I thought things were getting better. I was very proud of her. She was even bringing home more money than I was. Then came the night that she didn't come home. I was frantic. I kept calling her phone. No answer. I finally got a hold of her sister who said, I want to start off by saying it's not my fault. Turns out, when my wife showed up to her first clients to clean, there were police officers waiting for her. Apparently, my wife was not only cleaning her clients' houses, but cleaning out their jewelry boxes, purses, and other valuables. I finally get a call from her that night from jail. She's crying, begging for my forgiveness. I try to be sympathetic. She tells me they're going to let her out the next day on her own recognizance. The next morning around 7 a.m., I'm waking up to a knock at my door. I answer and find 2 uniformed police officers and a detective standing outside. I apologize for being in my drawers and I let them in. They search our apartment high and low and ask me a bunch of questions. I'm honest with them. My wife finally gets home later that night, once again apologizing profusely. At this point, I've decided in my heart that I'm done. I don't let her know yet, knowing her violent outbursts, but decide to plan with my family to move myself out of the apartment when she's gone one day. The first day of her trial arrives. She wanted me to come along for moral support, but I had gotten the flu that morning. I was throwing up in the sink. Meanwhile, she's screaming at me that I'm not being supportive of her, making my decision to leave much easier. My plan was to wait till she was sentenced and then move out while she was gone, avoiding any fights. But she kept getting extensions on her trial. So one day, while she was at work at her new job, I called my father and brother over and we quickly packed up my stuff. As fate would have it, she forgot something at home and showed up when we were half done loading my stuff into the trailer. She started screaming and crying, wondering why I was leaving her, then jumped in her car and sped off. I moved back in with my parents and started digging. Turns out, she wasn't only stealing from her clients, she was stealing from me and my parents when she would come over to visit. My mother told me that she had been missing some gold jewelry from her childhood, but didn't want to point fingers. I myself, upon going through my items unpacked, discovered my entire collection of 12-inch Star Wars figures that I had collected for years was nowhere to be found. I found out later she had put them on Craigslist for a fraction of what they were worth. I also found out that she opened up an eBay account in my name, took pictures of my nephew's Nintendo Wii, during this time Wii was hot, and sold it to multiple people, then never sent it out. She pulled the cash before eBay could do anything. Cue the revenge. Here comes the fun part. Despite her being a thief, I, on the other hand, had worked retail security for going on 21 years. It's my business to catch thieves, hunt down scammers, so she picked the last person she should have messed with. Turns out, my ex-wife stopped showing up for her court dates and moved out of our apartment. She vanished. The courts couldn't find her, so I started digging, found out that she moved in with the ex-girlfriend of a friend of mine. So I opened a fake Facebook account under a random name. I friended her new roommate. She openly began talking about my ex as her roommate, confirming that she lives there. I told her that I had a bunch of Twilight promo merchandise, which they loved. I wanted to send them. She happily gave out her address. I called that county sheriff's department and informed them that I know where a fugitive with warrants was hiding out. They showed up and arrested her on Valentine's Day. She ended up spending the next several months in jail while going through her trial. She was convicted of 5 felony counts of theft and ended up being sentenced to 8 months in prison. I don't want to speak bad of her, but I feel really bad for the people she victimized. It turns out some of the jewelry she stole from some of her clients belonged to parents or grandparents, long-gone mementos that these people should have had of loved ones that she stole to make a quick buck. Oh, and I want my Star Wars toys back, you jerk. Sorry, I deleted all the files you told me to delete. My job was to design and write software prototypes for individual high-value customers. If they liked it well enough, then a real software engineer team would build the real product. Occasionally, I would run the prototype for a few months while the customer evaluated if they wanted to buy the real project. Now, these prototypes are not a lot of code, but they do run with a lot of data. Even compressed, it can be a terabyte or more. Having done this work for years, I've accumulated a small disk farm of past projects, which can be very useful when a customer asks for something just like we did last year, but with a small change or two. The company resisted buying hard drives for this, but it saves me so much time. I ended up buying 1 or 2 a year myself until I accumulated about 10 of them. Figure over $1,000 worth of external hard drives. Then, unexpectedly, management changes. New management thinks they can replace old software guy with a cheaper new software grad, and I'm laid off, with 2 weeks to train my replacement. Yes, it's blatant age discrimination, but impossible to fight, so I just went for a graceful transition to my next job. Except, I have $1,000 of personal disk drives with old customer data on them. Company insists that no ex-employees may take any company data off premises and all files must be deleted. I don't want to just leave the drives at the company, but they insist I must delete all data before taking them home. So I offer. 1, they can buy them from me. 2, I will eventually use them for something else, but I can leave the data on them in case someone needs it. Not good enough. New manager insists I must delete all data and all backups before I remove the drives. Okay, that's what I do. 6 months later, I get a series of desperate phone calls. New software grad has been unable to build any new prototypes. Old customers are calling to get old prototypes updated, and new software grad has no idea how to do that. Executive VP is calling to ask what it would take to bring me back to do my old job. Sorry, I've got a new job now. And even if I didn't, I cannot just modify the old prototypes because you insisted I delete all old copies of it. If I did want to modify it, I'd first have to recreate it from scratch. The codes still exist in their source control, but the data is the heart of the prototype, and that old series of 6 months apart data we collected is gone for good, no matter what. Sorry, you did yourselves over exactly like I told you would happen. Hope whatever you saved by hiring a new grad to replace an actual experienced programmer was worth it. Don't want to sit inside even though a storm is coming? Okay. This happened to me a few years ago, and I just remembered it recently. I was working at a restaurant waiting tables in a very affluent area on the Jersey Shore. We had our fair share of entitled people who were under the impression that if you throw enough money around, you can do whatever you want and treat people however you want. And when your income depends on their tips, you kind of just have to deal with it. The restaurant had an outdoor dining and bar area that overlooked the ocean with an amazing view. During the summer, this was pretty much where everyone wanted to sit rather than our indoor dining area. And for anyone who works someplace with outdoor dining, you know the one monkey wrench that can ruin a very profitable dinner shift: the weather. No matter how accurate the forecast says it's going to be, you can never know for sure. For the most part, we never had an issue, because if it started to abruptly rain, there would usually be more than enough room inside for all the people who were sitting outside to move it. It's usually a cluster mess to keep track of which tables moved where, but we always handled it without any issue. Until that one day. We had a large party booked one day in our indoor area that took up more than half our tables, a 50th birthday I believe, so our indoor capacity was limited. And even on top of the party, there were customers who were weary about the weather, so they decided to sit inside also. And then more and more people started sitting outside. My manager did a quick assessment and realized that if it started raining, we would barely have enough room inside to accommodate everyone who was sitting outside. He told us we had to stop seating our outdoor area and to start recommending to the outdoor tables to move inside because of the impending weather, to be on the safe side. Everyone's weather app was saying there was a downpour coming up to the coast. Everyone was okay with it, except I had a table of 9 people who seemed fairly middle-aged and very wealthy. Margaritas with on-top shelf tequila, gaudy-looking jewelry, etc. Each end of the table seemed to be in their own conversation, not paying attention to the other. Upon hearing about the incoming rain, I go to the woman whom I thought was in charge. She had the fakest tan of them all, and I tell her, let's call her Karen. Ma'am, I'm really sorry, but because of the weather coming in and our limited seating inside, I'm going to have to move you folks inside so you don't get caught in the rain. This Karen is so entrenched in her conversation, she doesn't even register that I, a lowly waiter, was talking to her. So I try again. Ma'am, I'm sorry for interrupting, but she cuts me off, exasperated. What? What are you saying? I begin again. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Because of the weather coming and our inside filling up, we need to move you inside. We have a table ready for you. I can move all your drinks and everything for you. She snaps back with, the only reason we came here was to sit outside. We'll deal with the weather. I realize she doesn't grasp what I'm saying, so I try again. Ma'am, just in case the… And then she goes from 0 to 100 and yells, we'll deal with it. She yelled so loudly that the people on the other half of her table heard. They didn't hear our prior exchange, but only heard her outburst and went back to their conversation, assuming this must be normal behavior for her. She wants to deal with it on her own? You got it. So I begin to take their order. Filet mignon, a few lobster tails, expensive crap. I put the order in and I look back and all the other tables have moved inside because they all were rational human beings, and my table of 9 entitled jerks were the only ones left out there. I heard the leathery-looking Karen say to the rest of the table, wow, we have the entire patio to ourselves. What luxury. And after a while, I looked inside and saw that the table I had held for them was taken by another party that had just walked in, the last available table. And just as the last person took their seat, I felt the best feeling I possibly could have felt in that moment. A glorious raindrop tapped on the top of my head. Oh, sweet glory. Within seconds, it went from beautiful blue skies to torrential downpour. Everyone at the table grabbed their drinks, a little watered down at this point, and ran inside. After they shook themselves dry, they looked around and realized there was nowhere for them to sit. Most of them looked dumbfounded, like a lost kid in a supermarket. Karen makes a beeline to me and screams, we need a table. I reply, I'm sorry ma'am, we're fully seated and on a wait list for our indoor seating. Maybe one table on the waiting list, but a list is a list. Well, what are we supposed to do now? She hawked back at me, which led to me so eloquently saying, ma'am, as you said you would, you deal with it. I air quoted the deal with it to really emphasize that that was her response, and as I said that, everyone else at the table realized that was our interaction earlier and Karen had dug their graves. I felt bad for the most of them because if they had all known the circumstances, they probably would have convinced Karen to move in. But after she raised her voice and lost it at me, all bets were off. And as serendipity would have it, at that moment their food came out and we handed it to them. There they were, 9 people in damp clothes, holding a Cosmo in one hand and a filet mignon in another with nowhere to sit to eat. The rest of her party convinced her just to get some boxes for their food and pay their check and leave. As I hand Karen the check, she smugly says, well, this will be reflected on your tip. To which I replied, ma'am, we implement a 20% tip on parties of 8 or more. It's our policy, and it's clearly stated in our menu." She paid and then left with our boxed up food, leaving behind their half-full drinks. Best $60 I ever made. Edit. I definitely got the numbers wrong with how much they tipped and whatnot. It was a while ago. All I remember was the satisfaction. Am I the jerk for getting a coworker fired because she didn't get me a Christmas present? I, 19 male, work in a small office. In November, a few of my coworkers organized a Secret Santa gift exchange for Christmas. It was optional, but most people joined in, so I did too, though I did not celebrate Christmas. I'm ex-Christian, but I still celebrate the holiday season, and I thought it would be fun. One of the people who organized it is a woman. I'll call Jen. She's in her 50s. She's a devout Christian. I know because she had a lot of religious items on her desk, and she's always saying religious stuff and talking about church. Soon after we all picked names for Secret Santa, she approached me and said that she was glad that I had joined in because it's nice to see young people getting involved in the spirit of Christmas. Then she asked if I would be going to Mass for Christmas, and I said no. She asked why, and I told her that I'm actually ex-Christian, so I don't go to church. I don't think I was rude about it, but she started acting weird and said that I shouldn't have joined Secret Santa because I was profiting off other people's generosity in the celebration of Christ's birth. I didn't know what to say, so I said that I would be getting someone a gift too, of course, and I couldn't back out now because then one person wouldn't get anything. She said she would pray for me and left, and we didn't really interact after that. A few days before Christmas, we were all supposed to exchange our gifts. I gave the person I picked their gift, and then I was waiting to receive mine. I didn't know who picked me, of course, but eventually it seemed like everyone had gotten their gift except me. Then Jen came over and said she was the one who picked my name, but since I didn't believe in Christmas, there was no reason for her to get me a gift in celebration of it. I was honestly shocked, but she left before I could say anything. It did bother me a bit, but I decided to just let it go because I didn't want any drama. Later, I was talking to another coworker, Amy, who's 22. She asked me what I got, so I told her what happened with Jen. Amy said I should tell our supervisor about it because Jen has said similar things to another coworker of ours. I told her I didn't want to make a big deal out of the Secret Santa thing, and I thought we left it at that. But after the holidays, our supervisor, Mark, who's in his 50s, called me into his office and asked about what happened with Jen during the gift exchange. I didn't want to lie to his supervisor, so I told him what she said, but also that it wasn't a big deal to me, it was just a present. He thanked me and said not to worry, but that this was connected to a greater trend in Jen's behavior, and he would have to take action. Yesterday, I noticed Jen's desk was cleared out. I asked Amy about it, and she said Jen had been fired. I feel bad because I didn't care about getting a present that much, and I don't think it's something that warrants getting someone fired. I told my friend Sam, 19 male, about it, and he said I shouldn't have told Mark what Jen said because it was a dumb disagreement between us. So, I don't know. Am I the jerk? Bro, she didn't get fired for not getting you a present. She got fired for the things she said and did. She did this to herself, not you. She was a major liability to the company and opened them up to serious lawsuits. Not the jerk. OP is the straw that broke the camel's back at most, and Jen is and would still be a jerk whether OP told Mark what she said or not. It was only a matter of time before she did this to someone else and made them feel like crap, and then hopefully she'd get fired anyway. It wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back. The camel died on the side of the road a long time ago. This was just the first instance of documented proof she was going around the office acting like this. HR is like police. It's not what they know, it's what they can prove. Am I the jerk for firing my son? I'll get straight to the issue. I'm male, 43, and my 17-year-old son, Adam, has been trying to become independent and preparing to move out to college, but was struggling to find a job. I own a private warehouse as a side job to earn a living. My wife suggested I hire my son to work at the warehouse, moving boxes, bringing workers lunch, helping with cleaning, that kind of stuff. She said it's for both of our benefits since he couldn't find a job and we needed to hire someone new. I agreed, and Adam was so happy and excited to start working. We agreed on the salary and work hours, so he still has some time to study and practice. The first couple of weeks were going fine. That is, until one day. The workers were moving boxes, computers, into the warehouse. The client wanted them to be stored for a few days, and we already arranged before they arrived. It was all written down, including the number of computers we stored. In the evening, while I was checking, I noticed that there was one computer missing. I gathered all workers except for Adam, and they had no idea and thought there was a mistake. I brought it up at home, and Adam told me that he saw one of the workers putting a box in the garage to take home with him. I was confused since he couldn't specify which worker it was. He eventually gave me a name, and I went to talk to the worker. He denied it, and I ended up giving him X time to bring back the box, and then I discussed why he did what he did. The worker is a single dad with 3 kids. I've known him for a while, and I wanted to give him a chance. The next day, I was busy. My daughter was in the hospital, and I got back to the warehouse at 8 p.m., and it occurred to me to check the cameras. What I saw was Adam putting a box in the back of his friend's car, and then the car left. I knew his friend and knew Adam stole the computer. I went home and confronted him. My wife sided with him when he denied it, and after arguing for hours, I fired him, and I told him he was lucky I didn't call the police. This was my responsibility. The client entrusted me with his computers, and Adam stole on the job. Adam started crying. My wife said I was wrong for firing him, that it was extreme, and I should have just took from his salary. She refused to drop it and tried to convince me to hire him again, but I refused. I apologized to my worker, and I told him if there's anyone he knows who needs this job, I'll be more than happy to hire them. He brought his brother, and he started working with us right away. Now, my family's calling me a jerk for hiring an outsider and not my son. The box was being kept at his friend's place. His friend is such a disrespectful jerk. I won't be surprised if he was the one who came up with the idea. However, it was Adam who took it, and so he needed to be fired. This is not okay, nor is it acceptable. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.